Scared for reals.
Hey, it's Chris O'Neill,
Adam Perry,
and we're here to talk about some new horror movies.
Yes,
we love the classics. Obviously, we've been delving into classic B movies and horror films, but we saw a couple. Well, I saw a couple. You saw one and a half.
If that.
So the two most recent horror movies that have done really well at the box office, Saw 10 was standing. Five Nights at Freddy's has grossed well over $100 million as we speak, just domestically. And the video game, I think I vaguely remember. Did you even hear about this video game? I vaguely remember hearing something.
I'm not a gamer.
Yeah, same
and
here.
So I heard it like secondhand from people, hey, have you ever heard of Five Nights at Freddy's? And I was, what the hell is a Friday Night
Yeah,
at Freddy's?
Five Nights at Freddy's. What a title. It's kind of a tongue twister type of title.
Right.
But yeah, Five Nights at Freddy's, you're probably already more aware of this stuff than we are, but it was a video game series and a media franchise. Scott Cawthon was the guy who created it, and the first video game was released on August 8, 2014, and the resultant series has since become huge. Now, I talked with a coworker. She said it came out way before 2014, but all the research I've done, again, I vaguely remember hearing something about it. I don't know if my cousin was a huge gamer back in the day. I think he might have mentioned it. But we're going to start at the beginning, because maybe you're not as aware of the lore behind the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise here, but there's like 9 video games from what I'm reading here that take place in locations connected to a family pizza restaurant franchise. It's obviously fictional, named Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, after its mascot, the animatronic bear, Freddy Fazbear. Now, in most of the games, the player, if you're the one that's playing the game, you assume the role of a nighttime employee who must utilize tools like security cameras, lights, doors, vents, to defend yourself against these animatronic characters who inhabit the locations and become mobile and hostile at night. The lore of the series gradually revealed through voice recordings, mini games, Easter eggs too. Gotta love those Easter eggs in the movies and the games. The franchise also has some spin-off games I'm reading here. Of course, there's the feature film adaptation, which we're going to talk about. Apparently there was a novel trilogy and also an anthology series which comprised all-encompassing fictional universe. Now, the franchise still has a huge fan base, as the movie has grossed over $100 million in the United States alone. But yeah, I mean, the idea, from what I'm reading here, the idea for Five Nights at Freddy's came from the negative reception of Scott Cawthon's previous game. I guess he had a family-friendly Chipper and Sons lumber company. Chipper and Sons. Now, the player said that the main character, a young beaver, looked like a scary animatronic animal, and a reviewer called the game unintentionally terrifying. Well, I guess Scott was really discouraged by this. I guess he previously developed like a Christian-oriented game. He was really into the Christian stuff. Eventually, he used the feedback to make something intentionally scarier. So it was kind of like what Iron Maiden did with the Number of the Beast album. Yeah. Everyone said they were satanic. So it was kind of, maybe I don't know if he had that kind of mindset, but it sounds like it from what I'm reading here. Yeah, Five Nights at Freddy's, the first game, was released August 8th, 2014. August 20th, after it was approved by Greenlight, I guess that was the name of the platform. Again, I'm not a gamer, so I don't know any of this stuff. But Five Nights at Freddy's was also released on Steam, and then the game was picked up by the well-known YouTubers. It became a huge internet sensation. A guy I work with, he loves the video game, and he said, before you talk about this movie, you need to play the game. And I was like, I'm not going to. When do I have time to play video games? Right. I spend all of my free time watching movies, so I can talk about it with everybody. And then March 2nd, 2015, and then July 23rd. I mean, we're going all the way up through May of 2019 here. And then a spin-off from the series, it was called FNAF World. was announced by Steam and was released in January of 2016. But yeah, there's like this whole series, and then there's sequels, and then there's gameplays. And I guess that the inspiration, the fictional children's restaurant takes inspiration like the big pizza chains.
Like Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah, Chuck E. Cheese, Showbiz Pizza Place. I've never heard of that, but Chuck E. Cheese, everyone's heard of that.
Right.
This is where a lot of the animatronics really got big, was because of this, apparently.
You look at the way the characters look, and you see it kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly.
Now, the common elements, we mentioned security cameras, lights, doors, vents. There's also jump scares, mini games. Again, I don't know much about this stuff, but that's what really, people just went nuts with this stuff from like 2014 to like 2019. Then the spin-offs, which I guess that went on for a while. Freddy in Space 2, The Security Breach, Fury's Rage, Freddy in Space 3, Chica in Space.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a side-scrolling platform shooter game. And then there's the Fazbear universe that came out August 21st, 2020. It's just crazy. There's also books and comics. Now, you had a comic book store. Did you get any of these?
We did.
Oh, you did?
And we had a lot of requests for it as well.
As I mentioned earlier, the novel trilogy, and
toys,
then there's comics.
T-shirts, name it, it's out there.
There was probably a lot of comics.
What we had, we would just get the current issues of whatever was being printed at the time. So, yeah, I mean, every month you get 2 or 3 new stories and stuff like that.
I didn't have anything
demand. At the time. I didn't have anything back ordered or anything like that. But again, like owning that store, because it was a mix comic and horror shop. I dealt with a lot of horror memorabilia and stuff like that. One thing you could guarantee that you were going to be asked about every day was Michael Myers, Pokemon, and Five Nights at Freddy.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Every day. Do I have any Five Nights at Freddy? Do you have any Five Nights at Freddy?
So you had to keep it stocked.
Well, first of all, I had to figure out what the hell it was. But once I figured it out, I made some money.
You even got like action figures and stuff?
Yeah. We didn't get in the store, but when I started researching it, I mean, there's a whole Five Nights at Freddy, everything you get.
Yeah. Keychains, stationery. I guess McFarlane Toys also had a line of Five Nights at Freddy's merchandise, construction sets.
Yep.
Yeah, Todd McFarlane called the line the single largest selling product, bar none, by a lot of stuff he's done in 20 plus years. Todd McFarlane's a big name.
Yeah.
And the merchandise available internationally has been a factor in the franchise's success. All sorts of media.
Yeah.
And now motion pictures. So which leads us to talk about the actual movie Five Nights at Freddy's, which came out October 27th.
From what I've heard through the horror community about it, it's being successful. It was made for $20 million, and
$20 million.
And to date, it's raised $261 million
worldwide, or just
overall right now.
Wow.
Yeah, box office.
Yeah, it must be the whole worldwide box office. That's some solid stuff. Considering the Marvels cost $250 million to make, I think. No, they say with the marketing and everything, $500 million. That's how much the Marvels had to make, and it's like Five Nights at Freddy's is already exploded.
Like I said, just looking up that number, and when I hear this movie, this is described as 2 hours I can't get back.
Well, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But the film, directed by Emma Tammy, was adopted by a once viral video game in the 2010s, as we were talking about. Now, the player is positioned as the security guard watching over the arcade. Again, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Now, the player is supposed to protect themselves from the animatronics using, remember, we were talking about security cameras and all that kind of stuff. But the player finds Freddy a teddy bear, Bonnie a rabbit, Chica a chicken, Foxy a fox for 4 nights. And on the 5th night, Fredbear, the main antagonist, emerged as a haunted and possessed version of Golden Freddy, the original bear. Again, I don't know much about the video game. And if I was a player of the video game, from what I understand, you were just like, oh, that's cool, because they get all of the stuff that's happening in the movie. Because movies, you can't really like stop and explain everything. Otherwise, it'd be a 6-7 hour movie.
Sure.
Like Lord of the Rings, people complained about the not having the scouring of the Shire, but that would have been a 7 or 8 hour long movie.
Right. And they were long enough to begin with.
Yeah, they were long enough to begin with. But let's see here. There was a lot of bad reviews, a lot of negativity, because I think a lot of the people who went to watch it, they didn't play the video games, from what I understand. So yeah, I can understand a lot of the negative feedback. I saw the movie, and it's it's not bad, but it's an almost 2-hour running time. Oof. And it's long for a horror movie.
Very long.
Dawn of the Dead was over 2 hours, but man, oh man, it kept going like a mile a second here. But while the movie was much different from the video game I'm reading, it had the same idea, the guard watching over the arcade, but the guard slept more than actually watching the cameras. Well, because there's a whole plot. I mean, again, when you have a movie that has too many plot points that have to be explained, that have to be fleshed out, that's why the movie is long, and it's longer than it needs to be, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there are more characters at the arcade in the movie because, I mean, in the video game, it's just the overnight guy.
Right.
You are the overnight guy. You've got to use any means to survive.
Right.
He has his younger sister in there. There's also a police officer. There's a whole side plot with both of those characters. But I guess I can go into the plot now. There is spoilers for people who haven't seen it. It is a very predictable type plot. You have this troubled young guy who's got some sort of post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay, he really has a hard time. He has to take sleeping pills, and he's got to listen to nature sounds. So you probably saw that part, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So yeah, I mean, that's how the movie kind of begins. When he sees whenever he sees like a kid fighting with a parent, he thinks somebody's kidnapping the kid.
Yeah.
So there's this whole kidnapping of kids plot, which definitely very relevant today.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
Scary thing.
Yeah, the news media doesn't really talk about it like they should, but it's a very troubling thing. You know, kids getting kidnapped. There's all sorts of trafficking stuff. I don't want to get too much into that, but there's obviously some kind of thing going on with the kids and the whole idea is that they're being kidnapped by this one guy, and the one guy is kind of making the kids into animatronics. It's like he's taking their bodies and kind of making them into robot kind of things. So it's kind of, that part is kind of I wish they would have just focused on that and not have all these different side plots and stretch the running time to 2 hours, because I think producers and filmmakers think, oh, we got to make them longer. We got to give them a bang for their buck. But as we mentioned earlier this year, there was this Scandinavian movie called Sea Suit. It's an action-packed movie. It's like less than 90 minutes. Mm-hmm. And you're satisfied after you're watching that. It's actually a satisfying action movie, very sparse plot, very tight. I wish movies like Five Nights at Freddy's and the movie we're going to talk about next, Thanksgiving, they were just tighter. There's nothing wrong with making a tight movie. Now, people pick on me because I love movies that are 3.5, 5.5, 7.5 hours. But I mean, if you're going to have a time, it doesn't matter how long, 90 minutes, 180 minutes, you got to make the most of that.
Absolutely. It's
not about the running time. It's what you do with the time.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Five Nights at Freddy's suffers from too many plots, too long of a runtime, and it's just really, really sad. And I know there was some marketing people. One of them said she thought the movie would be kind of goofy and not super serious. I thought it took itself too seriously. That was another thing. Yeah, it's animatronics coming to life. Why do you need to make it too serious? Obviously, you've got to have some serious elements to it, but make it like a like
a Child's Play.
The first Child's Play.
Yeah,
the rest are no thanks. But but
oh boy, you're gonna make some people upset about that.
Well, I think that that it ran its course. But again, to be fair with the Chucky series, they didn't try to make it serious. Mm-hmm. They were intentionally making it goofy B-movie stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, you're gonna have animatronics coming to life, killing people and stuff like that. Yeah, you can have some tongue-in-cheek stuff. Like George Romero was the master of the tongue-in-cheek with Dawn of the Dead. Zombies, I mean, they're not real. You know what I mean? Animatronics coming to life and killing people, I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Well, with AI, you never know.
Well, I know. Well, let's not talk about that. That's a whole discussion for another day. But I know this marketing person, she liked the added characters that would connect in a sense that the video game doesn't have. But it's the whole. I'm looking at this article. It's an enjoyable movie for video game fans, but not horror fans. And it's interesting because I know the fans of the video game actually love the movie.
Yeah, and again, within the horror community, a lot of people I've talked to, it was a waste of their 2 hours.
Right, because they wanted like a cheesy, fun B movie kind of experience, like John Carpenter did with Big Trouble in Little China, something like that, something funny, fun to watch. But unfortunately, Five Nights at Freddy's, in my opinion, just taking a look at the cinematic aspect here, it could have been a lot lighter. It could have been a lot more fun. It was PG-13, so have some fun. The movie didn't. I mean, Matthew Lillard was an exception. He's
always the exception, though. Isn't he?
But the funny thing is he's grateful. He said this movie saved his career.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's what he said. I saw it floating around. You know how you see things floating around on social media. You get like a little sentence.
Yeah.
There's probably more to that conversation than just that. But Matthew Lillard, just like Hugo Weaving in The Matrix, seemed like he was the only one having a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone else was just like, oh, gotta be serious. And it's like, have some fun with it. It's supposed to be a fun movie. Yeah. It's a fun B-movie horror flick. That's basically what it is. Yes, it's based upon a video game, and it's going to arguably, I can't talk today, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
it's probably one of the most successful video game movies, because let's face it, other than Resident Evil, can you think of any video game movies that are very successful? So, some that kind of break even?
I mean... Mario just came out.
Well, but before that, Sonic. I'm talking about Sonic wasn't a huge.
The first one was huge, yeah.
Yeah, it was terrible though. But
tell my son that. But
the two Sonic the Hedgehogs made a lot of money.
Yeah,
but the longevity of the Resident Evil is probably that's going to be hard to beat.
I mean. Let's not forget the classic Doom with The Rock.
Oh, classic dud? It was terrible.
Yeah.
It was terrible. I liked how they had like the motion, but we're getting off
that was a joke. The movie was terrible.
Yeah, it was a very bad movie. But the point is I'm making, before Super Mario Brothers, before Sonic, there was Resident Evil and
everything else kind of, I mean, even the live action Super Mario Brothers with
that was
John Leguizamo,
who was all upset about the
Bob Hoskins.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got you want to talk about a cult following, huge cult following now. They're actually getting a 4K release, special edition, and it's actually one of my brother's all-time favorites. Just growing up with it, but video games. I mean, like, even
32 years.
Like even like the first Mortal Kombat from '95, that was popular. It got its sequel, but I mean,
it wasn't like a huge success at the box office, though.
No, it wasn't.
But I guess
a couple years ago, they just put out the new another Mortal Kombat,
and that was tanked.
Yeah, I mean, again,
it's hard. It's hard to say. It's unbelievable that we have to say that movies that gross $100+ million are a dud, but the movies cost so much to make now, and you've got to gross like the Marvels has to gross $500 million to break even.
Yeah,
isn't that? Yeah. I just can't wrap my head around.
I guess
that.
I guess that's another conversation. It's like, what really is considered success. Again, you throw out those numbers and you think this movie was massive,
right? Like like you think like Mortal Kombat. I believe the last one made. And if I'm wrong, please correct. But I thought it made close to $100 million at the box office.
Easily. I mean, everybody was psyched about that.
Yeah,
and then I couldn't watch the first 5 minutes of it.
Yeah, we saw it at the drive-in, and I really, it was a struggle.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you. If I can just go on, because we probably won't talk about it again. The Mortal Kombat, I could not watch it after the first 10 minutes. All right, because as we will find out as we go through this journey on this podcast, CGI blood, up with paying $600 a ticket to watch a rock band lip sync, puts me into a state of psychotic anger. Like, no, I mean, guys, fake blood, since the dawn of theater and performing arts, there's been fake blood.
Yeah.
And the fact in the first 5 minutes of this Mortal Kombat movie, you have Scorpion taking out Sub-Zero's guys. There's blood flying everywhere, and there's not a drop of blood on Scorpion. So unless there was Scotchgard in medieval Japan, where's the blood? Why are we so lazy? And that's all I'm going to say on it, because I will go off. Well,
there's a lot of attention to the technology, and you have to, like the Marvels and all these Marvel movies, you have to pay the stars who get paid $20-30 million per movie, which is ridiculous in itself. So I mean, you have to break even at $500 million with some of these big movies. But Five Nights at Freddy's, the movie, $20 million it cost. I like that, because that means they're actually going to focus more on the story. And they did have a story. Again, it was too long for my taste. But again, I'm not a video game fan, so I'm speaking just as a movie fan. Movie could have been 75, 80 minutes, and it could have been just as satisfying. Mm-hmm. And I just don't like the thought that people have to make movies at least 2 hours just to make, we want to give them their money's worth. You can give someone their money's worth in a 75, 80-minute running time. You really can do that.
Yes.
I just don't understand, some of the got to stretch out the plot, and, and I know George Romero, we talked about Dawn of the Dead a couple episodes ago when there was a 2.5-hour version released. It was long. It was too long. Just keep them, it's okay if a movie is 2 hours. Mm-hmm. It's okay if it's 5 hours. It's okay if it's 90 minutes.
Yeah.
But make the most of the running time. Make it matter. And unfortunately, Five Nights at Freddy's, they didn't think about making every second, every cut, every frame worth it, because it just could have been 75, 80 minutes.
Yeah. All right, Chris. Well, I mean, I won't deny I didn't get a chance to watch the whole movie.
Because you fell asleep, right?
I fell asleep. I had a busy week. So next week I will make sure I watch it, and I'll give my rank at the beginning of the show. What do you rank Five Nights at Freddy?
Well, I give it 2 stars.
2 stars.
Because I did enjoy some of the ideas. There was a lot of good ideas. Again, the whole idea of a whacked out guy who I mean, the guy who obviously was smart because he ran a franchise of pizza places, okay? Mm-hmm. And to capture children and turn them into animatronics. I can't talk today. But yeah, he basically turning them into animal-like robots.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a fun B-movie watch. It's a great idea. Obviously, it wasn't fleshed out as much as it could be. I wondered if they just stuck to the lore. They had the concept that everyone loved. The majority of gaming fans loved the lore. I wonder if they just followed the lore to the minute detail, how it would have been.
Right.
Because this leads me to Willy's Wonderland. That came out a couple of years ago. Action comedy horror. Directed by Kevin Lewis. Geo Parsons wrote the script. Nicolas Cage, who also produced it. Nicolas Cage is this quiet drifter who's tricked into cleaning up an abandoned family entertainment center. He's stalked by 8 murderous animatronic characters, okay? Possessed by the souls of a cannibalistic killer and his 7 psychotic acolytes. This movie was fun because I saw a preview for it. My wife isn't into the gore as much, but even she had kind of a fun time because she's not a huge Nicolas Cage fan. He can be good. He can be phenomenal. He can hit it out of the park. He doesn't say one word in this movie. Not one word.
That's probably why you hit it out of the park.
Yeah. Well, no. But basically, I know we're talking about Five Nights at Freddy's, but this movie, the creators deny it, but there is some similarities. Animatronics, family entertainment center. But yeah, when his vehicle breaks down, Nicolas Cage, picked up by the town's mechanic, who takes him to Willy's Wonderland, a once successful abandoned family entertainment center. And the owner offers him to work as a night shift janitor in exchange for repairing his vehicle before, I guess they leave him locked in the restaurant. So he's kind of there by himself. And then there's this teenager who gets handcuffed by her parental guardian, the sheriff, due to her previous attempts to burn the building. There is some subplots here, but as the janitor begins his duties, the restaurant's now withered 8 animatronic mascots. You got Willie Weasel, you got Artie Alligator, Cammy Chameleon, Ozzy Ostrich, Nighty Night, Tito Turtle, Gus Gorilla, and Siren Sarah. They're revealed to be alive and homicidal. Nicolas Cage he has to defend the place. And it's just fun watching him just kill all of these animatronics. This one was actually fun. It was entertaining. You weren't bored. Let's take a look at the runtime of this movie. 88 minutes. Less than 90 minutes. 88 minutes, which is a perfect running time for a movie of this nature. I guess there was this whole thing. The film received a small cult following. I was one of the followers. I really liked this. Many compared it to Five Nights at Freddy's, the video game, although, again, the creators denied any similarities, but the custom pinball machine in the film was based on a Gottlieb tale, Devil's Dare. Certain changes were made during the production. The title was changed from Wally's Wonderland to Willy's Wonderland due to legal issues. The director described the film as Pale Rider versus Killer Clowns from Outer Space. And it definitely had a Killer Clowns. You got to watch this.
Who doesn't love Killer Clowns?
Oh, I mean, that's a damn funny movie.
Yeah.
Pale Rider's a Clint Eastwood Western.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of that one. But yeah, he cites Panos Cosmatos Beyond the Black Rainbow, I guess, as another inspiration. And actually, one of the producers played Mike Tobacco in Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I didn't know that. I didn't connect that. I highly recommend that one. Close to 3.5 stars for me. It's just that
cool.
It's very memorable. It's very fun. Again, there's a few plot things that get kind of Overall, it's tight. It's a lot better than Five Nights at Freddy's. A whole lot better. Five Nights at Freddy's, again, I'm only judging it from a cinematic aspect. I have not played the video games. I'm trying to be fair. It just was too long. In my opinion, if the Five Nights at Freddy's filmmakers actually just based it on the lore and didn't add any other subplots, just focused on the overnight guy, maybe show some of his struggles in little quick bursts of flashbacks, it would have been a whole lot better. But, dragging all these other characters into it, it just dragged it down.
Well, all right. Well, like I said, next week you'll get my ranking on Five Nights at Freddy. But one movie I did get to see this week, and as Chris mentioned earlier, today is a double feature.
Yes.
And we are talking about the newly released Thanksgiving by Eli Roth.
And we have to go back to 2007 with Thanksgiving because it was a fake trailer for the Grindhouse double feature. And
it was what everybody talked about.
Yeah.
The Thanksgiving trailer.
Well, yeah, and Machete got its own couple movies and everything like that. I guess now we just got to wait for Rob Zombie's fake movie in that. But yeah, Thanksgiving, Eli Roth, it's going to be gory and violent. But unlike the Hostel movies, I actually found it somewhat entertaining.
I really enjoyed Thanksgiving.
Let's talk about the plot real quick.
Okay.
Because I just want to try to give people an idea of what the movie's about. It's a slasher movie. Again, it took a long time. I mean, 2007 to 2023, that's like 15, 16 years.
Yeah.
But you basically got like this he's kind of a rich owner who all he cares about is money.
Mm-hmm.
Got to be open on Thanksgiving, take every buck. It's just kind of a little slam on, help me out with a word here I'm looking for.
Capitalism?
Capitalism. It's kind of a little slam on capitalism in a way, but it's more about greed.
Sure.
Capitalism can lead to greed, and the guy's obviously a greedy guy. He's very self-absorbed. All he cares about is himself. Yeah, he's newly married, so he's been divorced and everything.
Yeah.
So because all he cares about is money.
Right.
His daughter she's not a huge fan of his new wife and everything like that. So basically, Thanksgiving takes place on Thanksgiving. They're having a family get together, but he has to go to work, and then all hell breaks loose because, well, people want to get this
waffle
iron. There's like a free waffle iron for the first set of shoppers that come through the door. And somehow his daughter, the owner's daughter and her friends, they just need like a phone, something quick, because they're going to a concert.
Yeah.
So they go in, grab a phone, but then the other hostile shoppers see that they're in the store and they're not. All hell breaks loose. It's a big stampede. We've actually seen footage of it on YouTube videos of people dying, getting trampled, and there's a few gory deaths, as you would expect with Eli Roth. This is a spoiler alert because we're going to dive deep into this plot as well. So that's what happens. People die in a stampede, trying to get the waffle iron, the free hot item on Black Thanksgiving Friday.
Black Friday.
Yeah. So that's what sets the movie into motion. The titles go across the screen, Thanksgiving, and then a year later, the next Thanksgiving, a revenge plot happens. There's this mysterious figure that's killing everyone who was involved with that horrific stampede going into the store, killing people. You don't know why. It's a big mystery. So you got a little bit of, like, literally the first shot of the movie reminded me of Halloween.
Yeah.
The zoom in. And then there's obviously some Scream, Wes Craven's Scream. There's a lot of plot twists that remind you of that. So there's a lot of good odes in there. I mean, again, I thought the movie was way too long. It could have been shorter. I don't know why, again, the movies have to be almost 2 hours. I mean, Scream, I think it was an hour, 30-something minutes.
Right.
I wasn't a huge Scream fan, but at least it didn't drag out to 2 hours. It would have been way too long. So that's the basic plot. I don't want to get too much into, who did what and the plot twist. I'm going to leave that part out of it.
Okay.
So Adam, what are your thoughts about, because you're more into the horror aspect.
Yes.
I'm a Mr. Cinema guy. You're a horror fan. So as a horror fan, what did you think of Thanksgiving?
I thought this movie was really fun. You had to go into it kind of with a tongue-in-cheek open mind, because basically what Eli Roth is trying to do here. He's just tributing our favorite slasher movies from the 80s and 90s.
Right.
We're getting an iconic character in the Pilgrim Killer.
John Carver.
John Carver. Yep.
Yeah.
And it was just, I wish it was faster. I wish the pace was a little bit faster. It was too long. But what do you expect from it? It has all the stereotypes and tropes of the 80s and 90s slasher. You had the group of friends, all of them flawed in one way or another. You had the innocent final girl. You had
the innocent final girl.
Yeah,
I like how you phrased that.
The one that everybody, the girl that everybody loves in the movie that they all feel sorry for, and
because she's just along for the ride. It wasn't her. It wasn't her idea to go into the store. She actually didn't want to go into the store.
Yeah, and she's surrounded by friends or
peer pressure.
Yep. So but I did love the opening of this movie because we've all seen over the years the madness of Black Friday sales at Walmarts and Targets and wherever, and people, beating the hell out of each other for whatever,
and they don't
TV, and
they just get so consumed with greed, and they just are obsessed, and they don't know what they're doing, and it's just so like why.
So you had a commentary on that, but also taken to the Eli Roth level with the blood.
Yeah, there are
with the blood and gore and the craziness.
It's like at times he was trying to outdo George Romero and Wes Craven for shocks and gore.
Was he trying to outdo him, or was he tributing him? I looked at
the reason I say outdo is because he had to do something like different from what they were doing. I mean, I guess he was honoring them in a way, but.
Yeah, I watched this whole movie as it was one big tribute to that whole era.
Yeah,
it really was a throwback.
It was a tribute. Yes.
So yeah, I mean, you had the crazy fun kills, blood everywhere. There was some good serial killer, chasing the victims. He had some intense moments, stuff that, and I found myself laughing my ass off, just out of the absurdity of some of the kills. It was fun. What more can I say? It was just, is it something that's going to redefine the horror genre? No. Is it, going to start a new trend of slasher movies?
I don't know about that.
Maybe.
I don't know.
It's
That's
a
pushing
stretch.
It there. Yeah.
But, I mean, is it going to garner a sequel? Probably.
Yeah.
They definitely leave the slasher open-endedness.
It reminded me of Friday the 13th. The final shot reminded me of a Friday the 13th movie. So, again, he was paying tribute to all of the movies he was inspired by. And one thing I'm really glad about, because the only other Eli Roth experiences I've had are the 2 Hostel movies. And again, I don't know why I went back after the first Hostel movie. It's like, are you stupid, Chris? Because it was just nonstop gore just for the sake of gore. And I understand where Eli Roth was coming from in those movies, but it was just unnecessary. Right. I thought it was unnecessary. It was just way too... It was torture porn.
Right. Well,
I'm glad he kind of backed away from that, actually had a story here.
Right.
He actually had a story, and it did follow a predictable, revenge plot with the innocent girl who shouldn't have been there. She was a victim of circumstances, and it's unfortunate, and she didn't deserve to die.
Right.
It's just that part was kind of cool. It was, again, predictable. We've seen it a million times before. In some cases, better. Because let's face it, you watch Halloween. Mm-hmm. It was a little over 90 minutes.
Right.
Again, we're getting back to the runtime here. The runtime is always key. It's, time is precious. And you want to have a good time with a movie, but at the same time, you don't want it to feel long. Mm-hmm. And this movie felt quite long.
Yeah.
It was 30-something minutes too long, maybe even 40 minutes too long.
Yeah, I will. That's the one thing I'll say. It felt like a drag at moments.
And we know Eli Roth can, he's good at, pace. He can pace when he wants to. Mm-hmm. It was just, the pacing was all over the place, and I felt it could have been a lot tighter and a lot smoother. Again, you don't want to make the same exact movie like John Carpenter did, or Wes Craven, or George Romero, or can't name all the Friday the 13th directors off the top of my head, but you want to make it fun too. And there was some fun elements to it. He did not take it too seriously, like Five Nights at Freddy's. He did not take it that seriously, which is good.
There was a very tongue-in-cheek feel to this movie.
Very satire-ish, very tongue-in-cheek, just like a George Romero film. Not on that level, but at least he acknowledged his favorites. Because him and Tarantino are good friends, and Tarantino does the same kind of stuff as Eli Roth, but he's a better writer and he knows how to pace things better. Well, used to.
Right.
Anyway, we're not going to talk about Tarantino anyways, but any other thoughts about Thanksgiving? Do you think this is a movie that people will go back to like a yearly tradition and watch?
In the horror community, definitely.
Yeah, I saw a few.
In the horror community, definitely. I think this is going to be a movie that will be a staple in a lot of people's must view at least once a year.
How about you? Will you view it once a year?
Well, once a year, probably not, but I'll definitely revisit it at some point. So I'll ask you what if I can bring you into the horror geek realm, and with a semi-spoiler here. The one question that is always asked, what was your favorite kill?
I didn't really like the kills, to be honest.
Really?
I think it was way over the top, and that's just my view of it.
Right.
Sometimes you don't need to see it. It's all about the leads up to it.
Yeah.
It's the tension, and I love the tension that Eli Roth had with the wife of the billionaire guy who ran the company. Mm-hmm. You knew she was going to die.
Right.
But I love how he suspended it and built up the tension. I wish he did that with all of it, and it would have been even better if he did not show the kill and showed the result.
Right.
If you see her. We're gonna do a quick spoiler here about the wife of the self-absorbed millionaires.
I mean, you also saw this in the trailer too.
Well, basically, he turns her into a turkey. He cooks her in the oven.
Yep.
You didn't need to see her burn and her skin and all that. To me, it was just, it takes away from the horror of it. Mm-hmm. And it would have been more frightening for, you see her screaming, being put in the oven, and then cut, and then you see the family all tied up around the dinner table, and you see, boom, there she is. That's horror. That would be more horrifying to me.
Right.
That would have been like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre kind of moment. You don't see the death, and boom, it's there.
Right.
Because let's face it, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We'll talk about it more in its 50th year anniversary next year. But you don't really see too much of the deaths. You see what kind of happens, but you don't see a lot of blood in the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie.
Well, I mean,
and that's more horrifying.
That's the brilliance of those movies.
Yeah,
it was the same thing with Halloween.
Yeah,
there's not a smidge of blood in Halloween.
No, and to me, those are what I like best. You don't see it; it's more frightening. Mm-hmm. But George Romero satire. There is a lot of gore in his movies,
right?
But the way George Romero did it, I thought was well, he redefined it, but. I don't know. I just think the movie would have been more successful, and it would have shortened the running time if you didn't see all of the deaths and the blood and all that kind of stuff. You could have still had blood,
right?
But not look at Silence of the Lambs. The genius of Silence of the Lambs. That movie's almost 2 hours, and you don't see the deaths. You see the blood splatter.
Yeah,
that's all you need, and you don't need these over the top deaths because to me it takes away from the actual focus of the story, because there is a story, and yes, it's predictable. Yes, we've seen it 1,000 times, but I love the tension he built, and to me, it got spoiled when you see the actual death. That's just my opinion. That's what I like. Hitchcock. I got spoiled by Hitchcock's deaths. I got spoiled by Tobe Hooper's. Well, just that movie,
right?
But I don't know. Thanksgiving did have some good moments. I give it 2.5 stars.
2.5 stars?
Yeah.
I'm going to give Thanksgiving, probably going to go 3.8.
3.8?
3.8. This is I think it's a movie I really liked the effects. You could tell a lot of them were practical effects. There were some CGI, but a lot of it was practical effects.
I will give him kudos for doing more practical than CGI.
And, as you heard earlier with my rant about Mortal Kombat, that's a home run with me. I felt like I was watching an late 80s slasher. So I had fun with it. I really dug the tongue-in-cheek. It could have been shorter. And as far as rewatchability, I see myself watching this again. I don't know if I make it an every year thing, which is probably why it doesn't jump into the fours for me. But it's something I'll definitely revisit and not enjoy watching it again.
Right. I don't think I could revisit this movie. It's again, there were some good moments, but it could have been a whole lot better if you tightened it up and didn't focus as much on the gory deaths. Because again, that took away from it distracted me.
It distracted you, but again, I thought that was the camp. I thought that was the camp.
That was his intention.
Yeah,
it's always his intention. I mean, he loves the gory violence.
When the spike goes through the guy's head in the truck, and you had a freaking fire hydrant worth of blood coming out of the guy. I laughed my ass off. Tarantino would have done.
Tarantino, it's very cartoonish.
Yeah,
and that's why those type of movies. I don't take seriously, so I do understand that was the purpose. But when you have an actual story, which he did, it's too distracting.
Fair enough.
It's just, we'll talk about The Exorcist later, but there was in the version you never seen of The Exorcist, there's a few gory, cool scenes.
Yeah.
But I could see why it was cut, because it didn't flow well with the movie. And again, if he cut some of these gory deaths out, tightened up the story, I would have liked it a whole lot better, because he did have some good stuff in there. Don't get me wrong, I'm not really crapping on this movie, because there is some good stuff here. I just wish he would have been tighter. And again, sometimes less is more.
Sure.
And
I totally agree with that.
And again, I'm not trying to be biased, but all of the horror movies I've really loved go with the less is more, other than Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead is the only horror film that I've given above 4-star rating for, that's Blood and Guts.
Yeah.
That's the only one that, and it's the way he used it. It's all in the way you use it, just like Eric Clapton says. It's in the way that you use it. All right. Well, again, we talk about new movies as well as classic films. And since we're going to be entering December, next time we're going to be dissecting The Wicker Man.
One of your all-time favorites.
That is. And again, there's really not a lot of violence in that movie either. It alludes to it.
Absolutely.
So we'll talk about The Wicker Man next time. Adam, it was fun watching Thanksgiving with you, and hopefully good luck on sitting through Five Nights at Freddy's. I can understand you falling asleep to it because, again, it was kind of sluggy at times.
I mean, no disrespect to the movie. It was more of me just having a busy week. But still, yes, I will hit you guys with my quick opinion and ranking on Five Nights at Freddy before we get into Wicker Man.
Real quick, and that's the thing, like, it doesn't matter how busy of a week I have. I can pop in a 3.5-hour movie like The Irishman,
right,
and I'll be glued to the screen the whole time. The good, the bad, and the ugly, the whole time. It doesn't matter the running time. Because, again, I could watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre over and over again, and that's, 88
right.
minutes? And that's a fun movie. But, going real quick, Willy's Wonderland, I recommend over all of the movies we talked about. Mm-hmm. Nicolas Cage, don't be apprehensive because he's made a really boatload of bad movies. Mm-hmm. But this is a bright spot. I mean, he did this and Pig in the same year. There were two completely different roles, and I highly recommend you check out Willy's Wonderland. That's my recommendation. Yes, if you're a horror fanatic like Adam, you will enjoy some of Thanksgiving. You may not like Five Nights at Freddy's that much, but I can guarantee all horror fans will get a huge kick out of Willy's Wonderland.
We'll see you next time on Scared for Reals.